In today's video, we're continuing on with our NHL Season Preview series. Today, we jump over to the Pacific Division and we analyze the Vancouver Canucks. We'll take a look at how they did last year and what's coming this year. Will it be a better team? We'll discuss that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, today we're looking at the season preview for the Vancouver Canucks. So in the opening segment here, we're going to take a look at how last season went, look at their record, what transpired, who were their scoring leaders, and then take a look at all the exits and additions and how this team now looks this year going into this year, and discuss if we feel they can have more success or where they're likely going to finish in the Pacific Division. So first up, let's get started here and recap the 2021 season for the Vancouver Canucks. Now, it was a bit of a disappointing year to say the least. They finished with a record of 23, 29, and 4 for 50 points. They finished in 7th place, which was last in the North Division, and they missed the playoffs. Now, the Canucks had a lot of, other things going on last year, like some other teams too. They were hit hard by a COVID shutdown. They missed a lot of time. Were hit hard, came back, tried to finish the season. They did get to play all of their games, but you could certainly tell that the team was impacted. And they just really weren't quite the same. You throw in the fact as well that their top player, at least top forward for sure, Elias Pettersson, had a disappointing year, spending a lot of time on injured reserve, where he missed 30 games. All contributed to a down year in Vancouver. Now, of course, we also saw some other guys have some good years. Their leading scorers last year were Brock Boeser, who had 23 goals, which was the most on the team. Also added 26 assists for 49 points to lead the team in goals and points. JT Miller was number 2 with 15 goals, 31 assists for 46 points. And Quinn Hughes led the team with assists with 38, also had 3 goals for 41 points. And those are your top 3 scoring leaders for Vancouver last year. It certainly seems a little bit weird looking at their leaders and having Elias Pettersson's name nowhere near here. Now, of course, with the down season, I mean, there's lots of good reasons to explain what happened last year. We did see Travis Green, the head coach of the Canucks, get an extension. It took a long time. We were well into the offseason before everything was finally official. But that is taking place and is all signed, sealed, and delivered. So Green will continue to be the coach. And they actually had a pretty good roster overhaul. And this Canuck team is going to look a fair bit different going into next year. So let's start first with the exits. Which players on the Canucks are no longer there from last season? And there's actually a lot of players that were there for multiple seasons that were no longer with the team. And first up, we've got the 3 players that were involved in the big trade with the Coyotes, sending Louis Eriksson, Jay Beagle, and Antoine Roussel all to Arizona in the Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Connor Garland deal. Obviously, those 3 contracts are all very much unfavorable, hurting their cap situation, but they all only had 1 year left on it. So I guess time will tell here if the OEL trade pays off or not. We always saw Travis Boyd as well leave, but this one was as a free agent, and he also went to the Arizona Coyotes. So they're certainly going to have a lot of familiar Canuck players there. Now, longtime Canuck defenseman Alex Eberle departs via free agency and signs with the Los Angeles Kings on a short-term deal. A little bit of a surprise, but clearly Vancouver wanted to revamp their blue line. They also wanted to likely not commit to Eberle for too long, and apparently he thought the options were better in LA. So away he goes. It was reported that Nate Schmidt wanted a trade. It was probably mutually agreed upon that it wasn't a great fit last year, and the player and the team certainly were impacted by not having a great season. Schmidt is a pretty good overall NHL defenseman, but just didn't really seem to fit the bill in Vancouver, so he gets traded to Winnipeg. Cole Lynn ended up being their selection in the expansion draft of the new Seattle Kraken, so that should hopefully give him a better opportunity. Braden Holtby, who was signed the previous year for goaltending duties along with Thatcher Demko after the departure of Jacob Markstrom, was bought out, and then he went and signed as a free agent with the Dallas Stars. Jace Horlock was not brought back. They had picked him up earlier last year off the waiver wire, and defenseman Jalen Chatfield left as a free agent as well and signed a free agent contract with the Carolina Hurricanes. So overall, that's a lot of guys no longer with the club there. Now, before we jump into the additions and discuss what I expect this season, we do need to pause for a moment and acknowledge one of our sponsors, SJSTer Smart Wallets. Top Shelf Hockey is proud to be sponsored by SJSTer. Forbes calls SJSTer the most successful smart wallet brand in the world. They certainly have high quality products, high grade leather. You can put all your cards in your wallet with RFID protection, and you can track it worldwide. That's the best part. You don't have to worry about losing your wallet and not being able to track it down. They have a great selection of products to choose from here, a variety of colors and styles, something to surely help for everyone. As you can see in the demonstration here for the product I have, this is a beautiful packaging, high quality. When you open it up, you get a high quality wallet with lots of slots for your cards. You have yourself a money clip if you want to carry cash on you here as well. And certainly, as you can see, the quality is outstanding. And here you can see the switch where you can help open up your cards. You just one little click and boom, everything fans out right in front of you. Easy to access. Your cards are protected. And here's the back where you have yet another slot. A terrific overall product, and I can't recommend these enough. SJSTer ships worldwide, and you can check out the link down below in the description as well as the pinned comment to buy yours today. So thanks very much for watching that promotional content. I do greatly appreciate it. Now let's take a look at all the new players coming into this Canucks team. There's certainly just as many new faces as there was faces going out, and this is headlined by the big defenseman they acquired, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, along with Connor Garland from Arizona, one of the offseason's biggest trades. Of course, the Canucks had entertained trading for Ekman-Larsson the previous offseason, but was not able to pull the trigger. For whatever reason, they couldn't get a deal done. I know, that, in my opinion, the amount of time that the GM and his team spent working on that, though, also took away from keeping some of their key free agents that ended up leaving, and they just really spent a lot of time, and they lost Tyler Toffoli, Chris Tanev, and others that they probably could have found a way to keep if they really wanted to. The Vancouver Canucks have also brought in Yaroslav Halak on a backup goaltender contract to play with Thatcher Demko. This should be a year where Demko really hopefully rebounds and runs with the starting job. They gave Tucker Pullman a big contract, which was a bit of a surprise. Not shocking that they signed him, but they gave him a 4-year deal at some pretty hefty money. That to me looked a little rich based on how established and experienced he is. So only time will tell if that works out. But between Pullman and Ekman-Larsson added to the blue line, I'm not going to lie, I do have some concerns. I'm not saying Pullman is bad or Ekman-Larsson. It's just the amount of money that they're tying up to me is the concern here. They have Brad Hunt on a short-term deal. He's a good depth piece. They can contribute a little bit on the power play if need be. They bring Nick Petan to Vancouver, another guy who's played a lot up and down between NHL, AHL. Never really fully established himself as a regular NHL player, but could be a depth piece. They bring back Luke Schenn to Vancouver, the multiple Stanley Cup champion with the Lightning. Obviously, that experience can go a long way to help on this team. They traded for Jason Dickinson to be the new number 3 center. They also brought in Phil DiGiuseppe as well as a free agent contract who left the New York Rangers organization. They also brought back some other vets as well, including Brendan Sutter. Of course, Sutter likely takes a bit of a smaller role and drops down to play the 4th line duties where Dickinson likely slots in on the number 3. Now let's jump over to dailyfaceoff.com and take a look at the team's depth charts to get an idea what this starting lineup could be for the first game of the season. So obviously we have line 1 being Pettersson, Besser, and Miller. Line 2 likely could be Horvat, Garland, and Hoglander. I personally really like Connor Garland for Bo Horvat as a winger. I think that's going to work out extremely well. Line 3, Dickinson, Pearson, and Vasily Podkolzin, who's expected to make the team. And then we have Mott, Sutter, and Highmore possibly being your 4th line, whereas your D pairs very well could be Hughes and Hamonic, Ekman-Larsson and Myers, Rathbone and Pullman. So we will see how everything shakes out here. Obviously, Demko and Halak will be your goaltenders between the pipes. Now, to me, as you probably saw in the thumbnail, we do have a concern. And that's the fact that 2 RFAs, which are franchise cornerstones here in Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson, to this date, as I record this on September the 9th, 2021, remain unsigned. And training camp is only a few weeks away. Now, that doesn't mean that it won't get done. There's been a lot of people that think that both players are likely going to get a bridge deal. Some feel that Hughes is likely going to get the long term. Pettersson is going to get the short term. To me, it's complicated because really they don't have a ton of cap space. Now, theoretically, they should have enough cap space to get the contracts done. It's not like they can't do it, but depending on what these players are insistent on having for dollars and what the AAV is going to be, it's certainly going to have an impact. I mean, they don't have a ton of space. Right now, it's expected that they would have somewhere around $14 million in space, and that does count using Michael Furland's contract for the next 2 years on long-term injury reserve, because we do have confirmation that Furland will not play again, so his career is over. So right now, Cap Friendly shows him with having $10.6 million in space, plus they can exceed that by 3.5 due to his LTIR that will get approved. So that, like I said, that gives him just a hair over $14 million. I mean, there could be a situation where Quinn Hughes might want an 8-year deal at $9-10 million. Like, I mean, I don't know what he's going to want, but if you look at the way a lot of these top young defensemen and even the little bit older defensemen are getting paid this offseason, he's going to be able to command some big money, and a lot of that is going to be based on his projected value. I mean, he's been really solid so far, and he's only going to continue to get better. But when you see Dougie Hamilton and Seth Jones, and I realize they're not exactly the perfect comparables, but Darnell Nurse, like, there's a lot of these guys. The Miro Heiskanen contract might be a little bit more of a comparable in a sense. The Cale Makar contract could be a bit more of a comparable. Either way, if they're going long-term, it's going to be big money. And it's going to be complicated. To me, that it's impossible to get Hughes and Pettersson both on long-term deals without shedding salary, and I just don't see that being a real solid option for them. So I think it's more likely that Pettersson probably gets a bridge deal, probably 2 to 3 years is my guess. I'm going to say, hard to say exactly what the AAV is going to be. But if Hughes wants a long-term deal, which has been what's been talked about, it's going to be tight to get them both done. Like, you're looking at $7 million a player, but I don't see Quinn Hughes signing long-term for $7 million. So they might end up both having to be bridges just for lack of other options here. Now, of course, last year, Pettersson had changed agencies as well. He and Hughes are being represented by the same agent. It's being worked on basically as like a combo package here, so it should be something that hopefully gets done ahead of camp, but it's certainly a big issue. But assuming that those deals get done, they end up on the team for day one of the season, even if they miss a little bit of training camp time. I still think this team can definitely be better than last year. Now, for a couple things, one, we're going back to the old Pacific Division, so they're not going to be competing with the same teams in their division setup here. They're going to have teams like San Jose and Anaheim, Seattle, LA to a degree that they should be able to win a fair bit of games against. They're going to have teams like Vegas and Edmonton and Calgary that are going to be tough too. Vegas and Edmonton, to me, are probably the top two in the division, with Vancouver and Calgary kind of being your next tier. I kind of predict Vancouver to likely be battling for that number 3, number 4 spot. I do think it's possible they can make the playoffs. A lot of it is going to be dependent, though, on how everything goes in the Central Division as well. Since we're going back to the old format, we could have a situation here where 5 teams in the Central end up making it, right? So it's not a guarantee that more than 3 in the Pacific will. So to make sure that they do, they kind of need to be in at least the number 3 spot in that division, which is possible, but it's just not really hard to look at it and say that it's a guarantee or pencil them in. I mean, you have to hope that Thatcher Demko and Jaro Halak give them solid goaltending. Demko, during the bubble playoffs, played out of his mind at the end of it. It was awesome. And I don't think it's all on Demko, the fact that his numbers were down last year. I don't think that's fair at all. Clearly, he could have been better, but the team in front of him could have been a lot better on a lot of nights as well. And like I said, they were decimated between the COVID stuff and the injuries, and it just really wasn't all that fair to judge them a whole lot based on last year's performance. Now, another big factor in determining how successful they're going to be is, can Oliver Ekman-Larsson be that defenseman that we saw in Arizona a number of years ago? The past couple of years with the Coyotes, the numbers don't look good. And if you look at the advanced stats, they're outright ugly. Himself has admitted that he wasn't as engaged or motivated as he should have been, was not happy, obviously, with the overall situation there, and that's something that certainly had an impact on his play. But can Vancouver coaching and the change of scenery and the fresh start be what he needs to get himself going? Because if that contract could end up being an anchor and really preventing them from taking some big steps forward here, if he can't get back to being a more solid, respectable top 4 defenseman. I mean, they gave up They tied up a lot of space bringing him in. Essentially, a lot of what went out was, bad contracts. But they were bad contracts that did not have a lot of term on them, and now his contract does have a lot of term. The Connor Garland piece to this, in my opinion, will be fine and could be the saving grace to making this seem like an overall decent trade, even if Ekman-Larsson doesn't quite fulfill the expectations that it's coming with. But obviously his play and hopefully solidifying that blue line along with new addition like Tucker Poolman will go a long ways to determine how much success this team is going to have. I mean, to me, I still have some concerns over the blue line. I still have some concerns with the forward group, but to me, the forward group is pretty solid. I like Garland with Horvat. I think you're going to see some young players like Hoglander take another step. You're going to insert Paul Colson, who should be a bit of an energy force out there too. You bring back Brandon Sutter, which I don't mind in a reduced role. Dickinson upgrades your number 3 spot. Like overall, that forward group to me, I have some question marks, but I think it has potential to be as good, or if not probably better than last year. Even having a healthy Pettersson will go a long way. So a lot of my concerns really fall on the blue line, and can the goaltending be somewhat solid, because they had Jacob Markstrom there for a long time, being a rock back there, and if they can't get that with the blue line not being any better, that doesn't matter how good the forwards are and how much they score, it could be problematic. So we'll have to see, but I think there's a real good chance that they're going to be better and battling for that number 3 spot in the division. I'm just not entirely convinced that they're going to be able to take a real step forward based on that 2020 bubble playoff run that we started to see, and they had a fair bit of success there. So let me know what your thoughts are on Vancouver and what kind of season they're going to have coming up here in the 21-22 regular season. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.